find that it doesn't really work anymore. At the top of your page is almost always going to be this AI generated summary. And if you're looking for something like a business, like I was looking for a dog groomer near Austin, you're going to find most of the top results are sponsored. So they're results that someone paid to show you rather than necessarily the best results. If you go on Amazon, you'll find something similar. I had to go and buy slippers for my father-in-law because he's staying with us and he wanted something to wear around the house. So I typed in men's slippers, and the first 6 results for men's slippers are all ads. The internet has come to be dominated by all of these big platforms and these big websites. We're on one of them right now, and the vast majority of these platforms, maybe even all of them, just seem to be getting worse. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why that is. And it was really helpful when I started trying to think about this that I started reading the work of Cory Doctorow. Doctorow came up with this really useful term called enshittification. Doctorow is a science fiction writer. I actually found out about Doctorow because of his stuff on DRM, like this story Unauthorized Bread. But he's also sort of a philosopher of the internet. He writes about how the internet used to be good, what went wrong, and what we could do to make it better. He noticed this pattern that platforms follow when they grow and they start to decline and they eventually die. Once you learn about this pattern, you see it everywhere. So here's how Doctorow describes it briefly. Here is how platforms die. First, they are good to their users. Then they abuse their users to make things better for their business customers. Finally, they abuse those business customers to claw back all the value for themselves. Then they die. You can see this pattern basically everywhere, but Amazon might be the easiest example. So when Amazon first started about 30 years ago, it was just an online bookstore. And it was actually a really useful thing to have. Before the internet, some books were just hard to find. It would take a long time for them to arrive. And so Amazon was like offering something that was valuable for customers. Amazon started growing very quickly, and soon it was selling way more than books, and it was selling just about everything. And it did everything it could to make Amazon the best choice, or at least the easiest choice for customers. And sometimes this would even go as far as selling products at a loss. They were trying to undercut their competition and just see, who would go out of business first. The goal was just to get as many people as possible to start using Amazon. And that's because platforms like Amazon and Facebook, basically any online service, benefit from something called network effects. These platforms become more valuable and useful to individuals when more people are using them. Facebook is basically useless if none of your friends have Facebook accounts. But then once everybody has a Facebook account, it becomes very hard to not have one. I remember back when I was in college, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit here, but this was where parties were planned. So if there was going to be a party that weekend, oftentimes you found out about it because someone would make a Facebook event. When I deleted my Facebook account in college, I had to then rely on word of mouth to find parties. So those platforms were kind of sticky. They keep you there. The fact that everybody is on those platforms makes you want to keep using them. So these platforms need to do whatever they can to get a lot of people on very, very quickly. And for a while, they'll do this by making it just a really great deal for consumers. Such a great deal, in fact, that we often don't think about the consequences of joining these platforms. In the case of Amazon, it means that most of the media that you buy is locked under some form of DRM, or you are trapped permanently into Amazon's ecosystem. Lots of other places do this too. And for all of these platforms as well, it's just true that they are collecting heaps of our personal information. We don't think about any of those consequences because these platforms are just so good to use at first. That's the first part of the sort of enshittification cycle. The second stage is when platforms turn against their users and they start to abuse them. What happens is they start to prioritize business customers. Amazon actually literally would subsidize sellers for a long time. They had very low fees, or they would make it really easy to sign on to Audible or something, and Amazon would cover some of the cost. But they have to promise things to their business customers, which usually means that they make the user experience worse. This is when Facebook introduced an algorithm where they started suggesting content to you. And so Facebook, instead of having a feed where you got to just see whatever your friends had posted with the intention of you reading it, would now be cluttered with content from news organizations that Facebook just had thought might be relevant for you. We don't think about how big of a deal that shift was in the case of Facebook anymore, because every platform is like this. YouTube is primarily driven by algorithmic recommendations. So is Twitter, so is TikTok. We take it for granted that this is just how the internet works, but actually it was a big shift, and it was a move away from a kind of self-curated internet experience to an experience where it was mostly about serving businesses. These platforms become more business friendly and they become less user friendly. So the platforms got the users in the first stage, and then they started to abuse those users and bring on business customers, and then they turn on the business customers, and that's the third stage of the enshittification cycle. By then, the platforms are so big that it's hard for users and for businesses to leave, and so they are willing to put up with quite a bit of abuse because the leaving cost would be just so high. And that's when, for instance, like in Amazon's case, they can start jacking up the fees. I know people who sell on Amazon for a living or who built businesses doing this. I also know that Amazon can basically kill your business with fees or with a change to their algorithm. Amazon actually now makes billions of dollars by asking businesses that sell on Amazon to pay Amazon to be higher in the search results. The difference between being the first result on a page and the second result on a page is massive. So you are highly incentivized to start paying Amazon in order to win. I mean, it's a pay to win cycle. So Amazon also made self-publishing easier than ever and actually help people build like real careers self-publishing. But now you want to do whatever you can to be near the top of the search results in whatever micro genre you write in. One of the ways to be at the top of the search results is to pay Amazon. So again, Amazon kind of introduced a pay to win component to their algorithm. I've heard from writers that these ads are actually almost never worth it, that discovery is just so bad that the ads just don't do much. But it seems to me that what has happened is that Amazon decided that they were going to take advantage of the desperation of these writers to gain some exposure. They do this to writers, but they also do this to small businesses and sellers. On top of that, it seems like most of the results for a thing like a backpack on Amazon are going to be basically identical. They're going to be from brands that you've never heard of. And what I think is often happening is that these sellers are essentially just getting cheap goods sent over from overseas, and then they are quickly relabeling it. And that's why you can buy 15 identical backpacks. The only thing that's different is the brand name that's on like a tag or a little label. It might not even be on the product itself. Then there's fierce competition between those brands to just be near the top of the search results. They know that this is a system that they're going to try to game and they're going to try to win, and it's pretty cutthroat for them, and it's really bad for users. But as long as Amazon remains just very convenient, people will stay. At this point, what you have is like this weird hostile relationship between users, businesses, and the platform. You've got three different groups. All of them are in some ways being hostile to each other. None of them are working together, and what benefits one group very rarely benefits the other two. The platforms and the businesses want to make users behave in a certain way by, shoving ads down their throat. The businesses have to fight with the platform in order to stay alive. The businesses also have to fight with each other in order to compete. And the platforms just are trying to extract as much value as they can from both the users and the businesses in the process. And Dr. O points out that this is a tightrope that these companies have to walk. And if a platform can't keep things perfectly balanced, that's when they die. One major scandal, one bad policy is enough to tip things over, and eventually these platforms start to decay. And I think he's right about this because I lived through one on the inside. So to explain this a little bit, I'm going to tell you a story about when I used to work in tech. So after grad school, I went into tech. Worst decision of my life, but I worked in tech for like 5 years. And in the middle of the pandemic, I started working at PayPal. PayPal is still around. PayPal has not died, but PayPal, compared to what it used to be, is a struggling company. There have been multiple rounds of layoffs, and it seems like there's tons of competitors, and people no longer think of PayPal as like the default payment processor on the internet. But when I joined PayPal in 2020 or so, it was amazing to be there because we felt like we were on top of the world. One of the ways that employees felt this was that we actually got our bonus in PayPal stock, and we would be told we would get this many shares, and if the company was doing really well, they might double the amount of shares. If the company wasn't doing that well, they would lower it. Maybe you get zero because the company couldn't afford it. And there was at least one bonus cycle where I, who was kind of new to the company and hadn't done all that much, received a massive bonus because they doubled everyone's stock grant. And at the time, PayPal shares were selling for like $250 or $300. Nowadays, PayPal sells at like $75. It's like a third of what it used to be. So at least one time I got a really big payout from working in tech. I was able to sell almost at the peak for PayPal. Because I was new, my bonus wasn't like that big, but like, I paid off my credit cards and I bought a new guitar. Like, so it was a substantial bonus. And at the time, the old CEO of PayPal was just telling investors, hey, we're going nowhere but up. Things are looking good. Everyone was really optimistic. And then things took a turn. As soon as e-commerce started to slow down because people, started going outside again, the stock starts to plummet, and PayPal looks around, they get scared, and they think, how are we going to change things? How are we going to make more money? And instead of, making the platform better, it seemed like they just started to claw back as much value as they could from their users and those businesses. They raised seller fees. It seemed like it was getting harder for sellers to prevent scams, so it became a more hostile environment for them to do business. I always was keeping an eye online of what people were saying about PayPal. I started noticing people were just saying that it felt more hostile and that they didn't feel good about using PayPal anymore and they wish there was an alternative. So when platforms start to decline like this, they get scared, or as Dr. O jokes about it at a talk at DEF CON, they start pivoting and they look for new ways to make money. You remember the Honey scandal that was online a couple of months ago? PayPal owns Honey. So the money that Honey was making was actually money that PayPal was making. Around the time that the stock price was declining was also when PayPal introduced buy now, pay later options and more credit options to get people to just spend as much money as they could on the platform. And they even launched a crypto wallet. Honey ripped off creators and people who use affiliate links, and it was not that good for consumers anyways. It wasn't actually offering much of value. Buy now, pay later is a scam that is used to trap people into debt cycles. And PayPal's crypto wallet charged fees that were higher than places like Coinbase. There's no reason to use PayPal for this because the fees they were charging were significantly higher than a place like Coinbase. And then way after I left, PayPal launched its own crypto token. Like, who wants a crypto token from PayPal? You can kind of smell the panic. PayPal still exists, of course, but it's smaller than it used to be. And there are a lot of competitors, and I doubt PayPal is ever going to be able to bounce back, and maybe one day it's just going to wither away and die. I don't make predictions like that, but I don't know. I think they're too far gone. They got scared. They tried to extract too much value and they overplayed their hand. And that's how platforms start to die. Now, when platforms are trying to extract as much value as possible from their users, one of the chief ways they do this is by showing more ads. You might have seen this number that says that the average person sees between 5,000 and 10,000 ads per day. I was like, wow, what a great statistic to be able to include in a video like this. Well, I decided to look into those numbers a little bit, and like a lot of things you read on the internet, it turns out to be basically made up. But even if it's not true that you're seeing 5,000 ads a day, it's almost certainly true that you're seeing more ads in your life now than ever. This isn't quite what Dr. O means by in-shitification, but I think that the rise of ads in absolutely everything is just another example of internet decline. Because ads used to be the price that you paid for free content online. That was the bargain. Watch this free content, like this YouTube video, and you can compensate the person who makes it by watching some ads. Now, though, you pay to remove ads from things you already paid for. When online streaming started, one of the big value propositions for customers was that unlike cable, it didn't have ads. So you could just pay and you could simply watch what you paid for. Now Netflix has ads, unless you pay more. HBO Max has ads, unless you pay more. Prime Video has ads, unless you pay more. Even things like a Kindle from Amazon with books, you have to pay more if you want a version of the Kindle that doesn't have ads. If you just want to have a device that lets you read the books that you paid for, and you don't want to be shown ads, when you open it up, you have to pay an additional fee. But I actually think that HBO Max having ads is the one that annoys me the most, because HBO, when it was a premium cable channel, didn't have ads. So the online streaming service is worse than the old cable channel. I recently subscribed to HBO Max, actually. I wanted to watch Righteous Gemstones, and I ended up watching the final season, and then I immediately canceled my subscription because I was constantly being inundated with ads. I'm paying you so that I can watch this show. It's not exactly like a cheap subscription, and I have to watch ads in between episodes, or I have to watch an extended ad so that I don't have ads breaking up the show itself. And these are shows that aren't made with advertisers in mind. They aren't made with those natural ad breaks like a network television show is. So it felt even more unnatural. I mean, I was just incredibly annoyed. I unsubscribed, and I hope I have the willpower to never go back. Let me be perfectly clear though. I make money from ads. And I always want to acknowledge this when I talk about this kind of stuff online. This is one of the paradoxes of my career. I often will make videos about how the internet is stealing your attention, or the fact that you're being exploited so that people can make more money, or the ways that you're becoming addicted to screens. And part of the reason that people want you to be addicted to screens is that it's going to make you, more receptive to more ads. But my whole project is funded basically by people actually watching ads. I even take sponsors sometimes too, though now I put the sponsors at the end so that, if you really don't want to watch it, there's something you can do. And there have been some creators who get angry at their audiences who use ad block. And I think oftentimes it comes from a sense of survival. It's them saying, look, I make money. I can only do this if enough people watch ads. And that's true. But if someone watches my videos and they're using an ad block, I can't blame them. That's because the number of ads you see online is just egregious. If ads were targeted, they were really just the price you paid for free content. They were fairly minimal, and they basically just really, it felt like a fair exchange. Watch just a little bit of ads for free content, then I would say it would be reasonable. I wouldn't like it, but I could at least understand it. I looked at the YouTube homepage, and sometimes the entire top shelf is an ad. So if you don't have YouTube Premium, this platform is overrun with ads these days. If you're looking, at news articles, there are videos that start auto-playing as you're scrolling a news article. Why is a video auto-playing while I'm trying to read something? Well, it's auto-playing because advertisers want to distract you and they want to get your attention. Going online without an ad block is like walking through Chernobyl without a hazmat suit. I don't see how you survive. So far, everything we're talking about basically is a product of corporate greed, because platforms want to extract value from customers and businesses, and in fact, they want to extract as much value as possible. The experience of the internet just becomes progressively worse. There's one final aspect of this that I want to talk about. It's the role that AI and bots are playing in sort of the degradation of the online experience. It's common to hear about the dead internet theory, the idea that most of the content you see online is the product of bots of some kind. And in the last 5 years or so, I think people have become more open to the idea that most of what you experience online, or some great proportion of it, isn't being made by humans and for humans. There's some research that indicates sometimes upward of 50% of web traffic is just automated activity. I think a year ago I would have laughed this off, but now I think it's almost certainly true. YouTube and TikTok are flooded with AI generated content now. And unfortunately, the problem is people fucking love it. They love the stupid AI baby Tucker Carlson yelling at AI baby Ted Cruz. They love the AI generated young versions of celebrities. They love the AI nostalgia photos. They love the AI narrators telling Reddit stories over clips of Subway Surfer. They eat it up. Sometimes it's because they can't tell it's AI generated, but some of this is so obviously AI generated. And the sad truth is that most users just don't care. People want to rant about AI slop and about how it's making the internet worse, but for a huge portion of internet users, they don't see the problem. And there are strong economic incentives for this kind of content to just keep growing in scale. As long as you can monetize AI content on platforms like TikTok and YouTube, it will be economically rational to keep pumping out as much slop as you can. I opened up YouTube the other day and I had some music recommended to me, and I was going to do some writing later, so I thought, okay, I'll listen to this synth music that YouTube recommended while I write. So I start writing and I'm listening to it, and after a few minutes I get this weird feeling am I listening to something that's made by AI? And it turns out it was. It was way buried in the description, but it was. AI music has now flooded parts of YouTube, and they use AI to make the music, they use AI to make the album art, they use AI to make some animation so that the video looks a little bit more interesting than just a static image. And these accounts can post album-length videos every couple of days. And I have a feeling it's probably the same people behind much of this content, so they're probably posting an album a day just across various accounts. It would be impossible for a human to make music that fast. So the people who are making this AI music, they don't need huge amounts of views or streams to profit because it's so cheap and easy to make. They can just flood platforms with this content and they'll quickly turn a small profit, and eventually this will accumulate and they're going to get pretty rich off of this. I've even seen some reports that now Spotify has started making its own AI music and AI artists and letting it be streamed on Spotify. So basically they are cutting off the humans from the music making process and keeping all of the money for themselves. Spotify's big problem for their business model is that they have to pay for content. they have to pay bands or podcasters or whatever for the rights to let their music be streamed. They don't pay much per stream, but it adds up. I would bet this is Spotify's single biggest expense. If they could just replace those music artists with AI music, well, they're going to save so much money, and they're going to make so much money for their shareholders. Sometimes this becomes so absurd that it's hard not to laugh at it. After Twitter became X and suddenly they introduced monetization so accounts could actually make money from engagement on Twitter, the platform was flooded with AI content. I mean, the platform was flooded with a lot of things after Twitter became X, but one of the things that it was flooded with was AI content. So some of this was just stolen content. They were using AI to edit it, maybe to, do a few things to it to make it pass any kind of copyright filters. I know this because I've seen my own videos reposted on X, but a lot of it though was just AI writing tweets for people. So you would see someone using AI to write threads or to write breaking news tweets. If you look at those popular tweets, underneath you'll find tens or hundreds of replies that all are kind of the same. They all sound the same. They all have this bland, soulless, repetitive cadence, and it's the exact cadence you get if you don't do any fancy prompting for ChatGPT. And they just rewrite the original tweet or post a really small reaction to it. They make a dumb joke, and then you see that 7 other accounts made that same dumb joke because this AI is not particularly creative. And it gets enough engagement though that these accounts can make some money. So you have AI to write clickbait, and then you have AI to repackage clickbait. You have AI like Grok, which we ask, Grok, is this true? So they can fact check the clickbait. And then you have AI to summarize the whole exchange so that you don't actually have to read it. Eventually this has to collapse, and I don't know how these platforms come back from it. They've become so polluted with this content that eventually advertisers have to say, like, wait, this is a scam, right? Like, humans aren't actually reading this stuff. Like, where is our money going? These platforms feel like they're going to burn down, and then hopefully something better will rise from the ashes. But until then, this is the internet that we're left with. Hey, wake up. Hey, wake up. Smile for the camera. Because of the things that I've brought up in this video, or things that I've talked about on this channel, you might think that I hate the internet. In fact, you might think that I think the internet should just be completely avoided. And so then you might wonder why I care. But the truth is I actually like the internet a good bit, and I just wish it were better. One of the things that I like so much about reading Dr. O was that you could tell that he enjoyed the early days of the internet, and he saw it decline, and he thought, what could we do to make an internet that we actually think is worthwhile? What I really want to see is an internet that's pro-human, that is a place where humanity can go and thrive, not a place where we can just waste all of our time. It can be a place where we learn things, or a place where we form connections, make friendships, share ideas. I think that the internet at its best can do all of those things, and it's like a wonderful technology, but if we're not careful, it's so easy for us to lose that. That's the internet that I want, but right now it's not the internet that we have. It's not as if this situation is inevitable. Hey, we could make a better internet. And I think one of the best examples of an internet that's working to be better is Nebula. I mean, you've probably heard me talk about Nebula before. It's an independent creator-owned streaming platform, and it has many of my favorite, and I hope many of your favorite, thoughtful creators too. When I joined Nebula last year, I was happy to do it because it was a place where you could go and you could find, video essays on things like culture, philosophy, and history, but it's not just video essays. There's all sorts of stuff that you can find on Nebula. Recently over on Nebula, Bobby Broccoli released 17 Pages, which is an original documentary about scientific research. This is a feature-length documentary about one of the largest scandals in scientific research in the 20th century. Some people called it the scientific Watergate. This documentary tells the story about this single paper which started this scandal, and it pieces this together with things like archival news coverage, congressional testimony, and new first-hand interviews. And that's actually related to the topic of my next video. I started thinking about the problem of AI fraud and the way that, especially at colleges and universities, students are using AI to cheat in all of their classes. But as I started thinking about it, I saw that it was a much deeper issue than I initially suspected, and it raised questions about the value of an education or the point of an education, but also the fact that many professors and academic researchers, commit fraud too. And I wanted to explore that in a video. That's up on Nebula right now because I always put my videos up early on Nebula. I'm always a video ahead. The reason why creators are able to make new and exciting content that goes up on Nebula is pretty simple. Nebula invests back in creators. It's a platform that really understands creators and what we want to put out into the world. And I want to stress that this is good for creators, but it's also good for viewers. So that's how you get a platform that can make things like 17 pages, or it can make a really fun game show like Jetlag. The reason that creators are able to make that kind of stuff is because people subscribe on Nebula and support the platform and support creators. So if you want to watch 17 pages or my latest video right now, you can do that by subscribing to Nebula. Just use this link, go.nebula.tv/Jared Henderson. I've put the link down in the description so you don't have to worry about it. And you can subscribe today. And you can save 40% on an annual subscription. That means it would only cost you $36 for a year of Nebula. And if you do that, you'll be able to support Nebula, but also support creators like me. Mwah.
A draconian law against Islamophobia is being brought in via the back door, sparking fears for free speech, says a Tory MP.
This is Angela Rayner's mission to deliver a definition of Islamophobia. Now, you heard some meetings about that this week. What exactly is the government trying to do here?
Well, look, this is really worrying, Tom, because what they're coming up with is a definition of Islamophobia. Now, that's being asked for very particular parts of the community, and we've seen a definition before in the past, and APPG drew up one, and it drew a lot of concern from counterterrorism experts, from people who were victims, for example, of the grooming gangs, and also from advocates of free speech. So we've been here before, and now what they've done is they said, we want to take this definition forward, and instead of being very public about that, they've held this call for evidence behind closed doors in secret with a hand-picked group of experts who aren't neutral, and many of them were involved in that previous definition, which of course caused these wide concerns. So the meeting that I had this week was with the minister to raise those worries.
Which individuals and organisations should be flagged up as potentially biased or not suitable to be included in this consultation? Because that's potentially very worrying if we're only hearing one side of the debate, really, or Angela Rayner's only hearing one side of the debate.
Well, I mean, this is the big problem, because we know that there are people on that working group, for example, who've endorsed the previous definition. And one of the things that was in that report that put that definition forward was that instances of people talking about the grooming gangs could be classed as Islamophobia or racism. Now, that is just wrong. And we've seen in the Louise Casey report how damaging it was when people felt that they couldn't raise those worries because of fears of being called Islamophobic. So this isn't about, wanting to protect people who are spreading hate or violence or harassment. All of those things are already illegal under the current law. The question is, what problem are you trying to fix? Why should only one religion get this special protection of a definition? And ultimately, what kind of conversations will be shut down by it? And those are the concerns that were raised before. And I think if you wanted to counter that, you would have a working group which had representatives, for example, from free speech, counterterrorism experts, people who had recently experienced the horrors of not being able to get justice for those awful crimes that we saw when it came to the grooming gangs, because they were worried about being called Islamophobic. That is what we need to see. We need to see proper representation. And ultimately, we need to make sure that no one is unable to say the things they need to say, no matter how difficult they are when it comes to this area.
Labour's review into expanding the definition has sparked widespread fear of a crackdown on criticism of Islam. Paul Stott points out Baroness Casey was accused of it when investigating the grooming gangs in Rotherham.
An excellent report you guys have out called How Not to Tackle Grooming Gangs, and central to that is this redefinition of the word Islamophobia. Tell us why you think this is a terrible idea.
Well, our report basically starts on the premise, Martin, that the ground on which British politics sits, or certainly the ground of this debate, has completely shifted following the national audit by Baroness Casey. And I think the Home Secretary did seem to recognise that at the weekend. There's a recognition that people have been vilified in the past for making entirely sensible comments about grooming gangs. Indeed, Louise Casey herself was given the award of was nominated for Islamophobe of the Year by one activist group for a previous report she did on Rotherham. We know Andrew Norfolk, Anne Cryer, local MP in Keighley, got terrible stick off of people, and they were all right to say the things that they did. It was their critics that were in the wrong. And what we can't do with this inquiry when it gets going is put a straitjacket on it. It needs to look in a lot of dark areas. It needs to get stuck in to failing past police inquiries, issues around local councils. And our fear is if there's a definition of Islamophobia, people will be afraid to speak out.
I can't see anything that I can criticise you on. The notion that Baroness Katie herself in 2017 was nominated to be Islamophobe of the Year because she was investigating the Rotherham scandal is in itself surely enough to send the alarm bells that we should and could, be allowed to criticise anything. It was only a short while ago that calling these rape gangs Pakistani-dominated rape gangs, which is factually correct, was Islamophobic. The timing is terrible. Surely they've got to press the pause button. But do you think that will happen?
Well, this group that you mentioned, the Muslim hatred / Islamophobia definition working group, as its rather lengthy title, is headed by Dominic Grieve. It was established by the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, back in February, and given 6 months to come up with a working definition of Islamophobia. It wasn't tasked with whether there should be a definition at all, which does rather suggest that people's minds are made up. And indeed, Dominic Grieve, as chair, he had previously supported the APPG, All-Party Parliamentary Group on British Muslims, who came up with an earlier definition. So in many ways, I fear this is a done deal. Indeed, one of my colleagues, Sir John Jenkins, former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, he was asked to give evidence to Mr. Grieve's group, and he declined to do so, basically fearing it's a done deal, that the government's committed on this. And our argument now is because of what's clearly been established by Baroness Casey, because of the need to have a full and proper and fearless inquiry, Angela Rayner now needs to pause this group, and the government needs to pause all its work on an Islamophobia definition. That doesn't mean stopping work on anti-Muslim hatred. That's already illegal. It means pausing work on an Islamophobia definition, and that's for the government to do now.
Legislating to protect a religion would be an affront to free speech, he said.
We have, as you quite correctly say, anti-hate crimes. We have equality laws which specifically protect people along lines of faith, along race, along gender. We have the framework already. Why do we need special dispensation? Why do we need special treatment? And could that give special cover to wrongdoings, particularly around the sensitive issue of rape gangs?
Well, I don't think we need special dispensation for one faith. And indeed, at Policy Exchange, we've argued now for 5 or 6 years that a definition of Islamophobia would inevitably restrict freedom of speech. And even though the government's current position is it wouldn't be legally binding, the reality is that in practice it would be. Because if it's accepted by employers, it's accepted by trade unions, it's accepted by government and across the public sector, it in effect becomes the rules, the policy, the law of your workplace. And I think it'd be very difficult for somebody who, for example, worked in a local authority in somewhere like Rochdale, Rotherham, Telford, some of the areas where we've seen real problems in the past, it'd be very hard for them to speak out if they know it's going to cost them their job. So the case against this definition or policy is stronger now than it ever has been.
And Paul Stott, Sir John Jenkins, the co-author of this report, I think just sums it up brilliantly. He says this: the redefinition of Islamophobia will almost certainly turbocharge cancel culture and would be an undeniable act of two-tier policy, creating special status and protection for members of one faith alone. I put it to you again, Paul Stott, that is not how we live in Britain. We don't have special protection. We stand before the law, we stand before God with equity.
We do, Martin, and I think the government is now beginning to be a little bit rattled by the charge of two-tier policy, two-tier policing, etc., has been one of the big debates. if it accepts a definition of Islamophobia, that would be the worst example yet of two-tier policy, and it will have a very negative effect on social cohesion, on community relations, and I think also they'll pay the price at the ballot box potentially.
Paul Start's an excellent summary, and of course adding nobody should be discriminatory towards anybody for their faith. This isn't about that. This is about, do we need special definitions? Paul Start's excellent. Thanks for joining me today on the show. A pleasure to have your company from Policy Exchange. Great report.
And Patrick Christie's pointed out that being accused of Islamophobia in Britain in 2025 could be tantamount to a death sentence.
Tonight, I am taking a stand, and given everything that I'm about to say, I want to make one thing very clear. Genuine racism of any kind is wrong. But for too long, people have been scared into silence for fear of being called Islamophobic. Being labelled as an Islamophobe in Britain has consequences, and those consequences can be a death sentence. In my view, some of the main drivers of that fear has been the Muslim Council of Britain and the Centre for Media Monitoring, which, as you can see, were basically the same thing, but now claim to be different entities. And they are backed up by a load of useful left-wing lovey idiots in the media. It is vital to take a stand on this right now, because we are about to get a new Islamophobia definition in Britain that could go way beyond criminalising anti-Muslim hate and instead make freedom of speech or fair criticism of the religion of Islam illegal. For too long, they have got away with trying to call absolutely everything Islamophobic, but we can expose that their credibility now lies in tatters. The Centre for Media Monitoring has apparently attacked journalists for describing terrorist groups like Hamas as Islamist, despite the fact that they are, clearly. They didn't want Jihadi John labelled as an Islamist because he had not yet been convicted, despite him producing ISIS beheading videos. They labelled reporting of terror attacks as Islamophobic, like the New Year's Eve attack in Manchester. They said that reports that he was a knife-wielding man yelling Islamic slogans was Islamophobic. Just in case you're wondering what he was shouting, it was Allahu Akbar and long live the Caliphate, whilst he stabbed people. They said that Westminster Bridge terrorist Khalid Massoud should not have been referred to as an Islamic extremist because the word Islamic derives from the word Islam, which really, of course, means peace. They actually don't want reporters to use the terms Islamism, Islamic extremism, or Muslim extremism at all. So they thought that reporting on the Pakistani rape gang scandal by journalist Andrew Norfolk amounted to the scapegoating of Muslims. So these are all findings in a report by the think tank Policy Exchange. The Centre for Media Monitoring thinks 60% of news stories about Muslims were negative, and that this is evidence of widespread Islamophobia, which ultimately is why we need a new definition. But when you realise that they would class the examples that I've just given as Islamophobic, then frankly, their whole narrative falls apart, and with it, the need for a new definition. But the really concerning thing is how much influence the Centre for Media Monitoring has. In June 2025, the BBC's Director of News Content, Richard Burgess, spoke at one of their meetings in Parliament alongside two Labour MPs, at which the group launched a report attacking the BBC's coverage of Israel and Gaza. They objected to reports that referred to the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza. They didn't want it to be called the Hamas-run health ministry. So the BBC's Director of News Content reportedly called their report very thorough. And the former Today programme presenter, Michelle Hussein, appeared to promote the report on her social media. And ex-Labour spin doctor Alistair Campbell, remember him, wrote a supportive quote for them. But this, I'm afraid, goes right to the very top. The Centre for Media Monitoring claims to have been influential in the developing of the Independent Press Standards Organisation's guidance when it comes to reporting on Muslims and Islam. The Executive Director of the Centre for Media Monitoring is Miqdad Versi, who appears to have links to the Labour Party as they attended the Labour Muslim Network's official iftar in March 2025. They also clearly try to influence young journalists and boast about delivering masterclasses to journalism students at all the top universities and having engaged with more than 1,000 journalists, editors, regulators and policymakers. So how come a group that doesn't seem to think that Jihadi John was an Islamist terrorist appear to have so much power and influence at places like the BBC, the press regulator, and seemingly government? Well, I think it's fear, isn't it? Everybody's terrified of being called Islamophobic, so they go along with it, and they jump at the chance of collaborating with a group that used to be associated with the Muslim Council of Britain in the hope that they themselves will be spared from the life-threatening consequences of being called an Islamophobe in modern Britain. But what they don't expect is to be called out for it and held to account. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. In December 2024, the Centre for Media Monitoring published a report called GB News, a snapshot of anti-Muslim hate. It named me about 17 times, more than any other presenter, and it included either false quotes or quotes that were taken completely out of context. And I believe it included things like me just talking about MI5 reports into Iranian terrorist sleeper cells or genuine Christmas market terror attacks in their list of times that I and the channel had, in their view, negatively spoken about the religion of Islam. Now that led to reports like this. GB News hates Muslims was the title there. Now just think about what the consequences of that could be. Would you like to walk around the streets of Britain with a label on your back that says that you hate Muslims? No, I didn't think so. Well, they did that to me, and it had consequences. And two people responsible for writing the foreword and the commentary to that report were pompous, lovey, left-wing establishment media darlings, Gavin Esler, formerly of Newsnight, and Stuart Purvis, former ITN and Ofcom bigwig. They seem to think of themselves as esteemed journalists with solid morals and purveyors of truth and decency. As it turns out, I would seriously question their professional reputations. Do they really want to be viewed as shills for an organisation that had close ties with the Muslim Council of Britain and doesn't appear to think that the Westminster Bridge attacker should be referred to as an Islamic extremist? Well, I went to both Mr. Esler and Mr. Purvis several times. Neither of them has the courage to come on this show. I asked them both if they had bothered to independently fact-check the report by the Centre for Media Monitoring before they endorsed it. Well, neither of them said they had. I asked them both if they would like to apologise to me and my family for helping to promote a report that had consequences for our personal safety. Neither of them was big enough to take responsibility and apologise. And this is a funny thing, isn't it? People like Gavin Esler and Stuart Purvis are happy to endorse reports that label people, essentially really, as Islamophobes, and as a consequence, they help to put a target on their back, in my view. They are even happy to do a promotional event to help push that report. That was what was advertised online anyway, there they are. And when it comes to taking accountability for their actions, though, they just run away. Now, they may dismiss what I have to say here now because, oh, it's only GB News, and oh, the Policy Exchange think tank, it's just probably very right-wing. We don't have to listen to them. I think that's how a lot of those people think. But they're about to learn quite a stiff lesson, because the British public are no longer willing to be scared into silence with baseless claims of Islamophobia. We see through it. And they are about to find out that a lot of their lovey friends who tell them that they never watch GB News actually do. And they'll have seen this, and they'll probably think less of them, both personally and professionally, as a result.
But Labour's Dominic Grieve told GB News there will be no impact on freedom of expression.
You mentioned the Oxford Islamic Centre there. You're doing the definition of Islamophobia, looking at that. There's concern about the impact on freedom of speech. You're a very wise barrister. How are you going to, because you're conservative, you believe in freedom of speech.
I am very much aware of that. And at the outset, I said there is an issue surrounding freedom of expression as against the desire of many Muslims to have some kind of definition which provides a measure of a framework which may help protect them, because they're undoubtedly at the moment the victims of really unpleasant anti-Muslim hatred. You know, respectable lady travelling with a headscarf on the bus will get casual abuse. And this is driving a wedge in our society that is, in my view, very dangerous. So we're looking at it. But please, I encourage people, look at what we're going to produce is private for government. Look at our terms of reference. They make absolutely explicit that we will not introduce some blasphemy law to protect religion, whether it's Islam or anything else, by the back door, and nor will it have any impact on the recurrent laws in relation to freedom of expression under law. So people should be reassured by that. That's not clear that we will get it all right. And at the end of the day, if the government doesn't like what we want, they won't use it. But we are there to operate within that framework. And some of the stuff I'm reading about this is just, excuse my saying it, garbage.
You're looking at an early prototype.
Why does nobody want Palestinian refugees? It's true. And specifically, why has every Arab country rejected sheltering any refugees from Gaza? In just weeks after Hamas's October 7th attack, Israel's massive retaliation left well over 1 million Gazans homeless. Today, almost twice that number. About 90% of Gaza's population has been forced from their homes, yet not a single Arab country will open its doors. Why not? Is it a principled stand to prevent Israel from depopulating Gaza altogether? Or are Arab leaders simply talking a good game about Palestinian solidarity while never actually wanting to help them? As you'll see, it's complicated. Hey, I'm Ken LaCourte. You can find a lot of videos about how one side here is evil and the other side is completely innocent victims, but you won't find too many that try to fairly explain what's actually happening in a conflict that's been going on since before we were born. We'll look at the history of Palestinian refugees, their turbulent history in host countries, and finally take a look at the current situation in Gaza. In the next few minutes, you'll understand a whole lot more about this complicated situation. Okay, so the Palestinian refugee crisis began in 1948. During Israel's creation, about 700,000 Palestinians, about 85% of the Arab population in that region, they fled or expelled from their homes altogether. Palestinians call it Nakba, meaning catastrophe. Entire villages emptied out overnight. Families escaping on foot or loaded onto carts, they carried what they could. And today, their descendants number almost 6 million people, the largest and oldest refugee population on Earth. Initially, nearby Arab countries, they assumed it'd be temporary. They set up makeshift camps and didn't try to integrate them into their countries, which is important because rather than bringing Palestinians into their societies permanently, they made a choice to house them separately, insisting their real home was Palestine and they'd soon return. Well, that didn't happen. The refugee problem wasn't solved within months or even years. Instead, it dragged on until today. The temporary camps turned into permanent fixtures, sprawling settlements of tents. They eventually became concrete neighborhoods filled with residents, some of whom still held on to the keys of homes they'd never see again. And then, 19 years later, the situation worsened. During the Six-Day War in 1967, another massive wave of Palestinians, this time more than 300,000, fled from the West Bank and Gaza into Jordan, into Lebanon and Syria. Again, the assumption was short-term shelter until the Arabs won, but again, that just proved wrong. The result was overcrowded UN-run camps, swelling even further with Palestinians who were now political pawns trapped in a geopolitical limbo. The reception Palestinians received, it varied wildly between Arab nations. Jordan was the sole exception, which often granted citizenship, especially to those fleeing from the West Bank, which Jordan itself had annexed in 1950. But even there, integration wasn't smooth or complete. Palestinians in Jordan still face challenges, political suspicions, and often violent conflicts. Outside of Jordan, the reception was even colder. In Lebanon, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were intentionally kept stateless, forbidden from citizenship, barred from many jobs, and tightly restricted in camps. Lebanon had a tricky religious and political balance between Christian, Sunni, Shia, and Druze, and it wasn't going to keep a massive Palestinian Sunni population around. A similar situation unfolded in Syria, which kept Palestinians in a permanent holding pattern, tolerated, sometimes welcomed, but rarely integrated into Syrian society. These early conditions set the stage for decades of tension. Palestinian refugees, increasingly frustrated by not having a home, often turned militant, taking their struggle across Arab borders. The Palestinian Liberation Organization emerged partly from these refugee communities, and it became a powerful and armed political force. Of course, that made their host countries even more wary, and it laid the groundwork for more conflicts. By the 70s, Palestinian refugee populations had become permanent, distinct groups within Arab countries. They were visible, but rarely integrated, and often distrusted by their hosts. Entire generations grew up in these camps. Children were born, grew into adulthood, and started families of their own without ever living in a home country. Now, understanding that history helps explain why, even now, Arab nations are deeply resistant to new waves of Palestinian refugees. Hey, this is a good time to mention that while I spend a lot of time researching this, I'm not perfect. If I make any serious factual mistake, let me know. I'll deal with it in a pinned comment below. And if you like stuff like this, now's a good time to subscribe. Okay, so now let's look at what happened next, because the Palestinian refugees reshaped some of the countries that they were hosted in, and often violently. First, Jordan. By 1970, Palestinians made up more than half of Jordan's entire population. Eventually, their welcome wore out and their relationship exploded into violence. It was known as Black September. It pitted Jordan's military against Palestinian guerrilla groups, mainly the PLO. They'd turned the refugee camps into basically armed fortresses. The PLO essentially created a state within a state. It openly defied Jordan's sovereignty, and it tried to overthrow King Hussein's monarchy. After fierce warfare, Jordan crushed the PLO, leaving about 3,400 Palestinians dead and tens of thousands expelled. Black September taught Jordan a painful lesson, and it would never again let heavily armed Palestinian factions operate on its soil. Actually, most Palestinians by then had citizenship, but thousands were expelled, mainly to Lebanon. And Lebanon got even uglier as the PLO set up shop there. Their armed presence helped ignite Lebanon's civil war from 1975 to 1990, which killed over 100,000 people and displaced about a third of the country from their homes. Militias from all sorts of different sects and outside countries fought viciously, and the Palestinians were often right in the middle of it. Even today, Palestinians in Lebanon, they're politically marginalized, they're banned from many jobs, they're denied citizenship, and they're viewed with suspicion by much of the rest of Lebanese society. Kuwait is another example of how quickly Arab solidarity with Palestinians could evaporate once politics shifted. By 1990, about 400,000 Palestinians lived in Kuwait, making up about 20% of its population. And when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, Yasser Arafat and the PLO publicly supported him, and once again, things got ugly. After much of the world helped Kuwait kick out Saddam, Kuwait then pushed out almost the entire Palestinian community, about 200,000 who were forcibly removed within months, and another 200,000 barred from ever returning. Yasser Arafat later said that Kuwait's actions were even worse than Israel's treatment of Palestinians. Other countries had less violent but similar stories. Iraq, Libya, Saudi Arabia. Palestinians were often welcomed, at least to some extent, then expelled either quietly or through mass expulsions. Each of these episodes showed Arab states and their ambivalence towards the Palestinian. They're publicly supportive of their cause, but privately suspicious and wary of integrating them into their societies. Keeping Palestinians separate and stateless became, in part, a political strategy, and maintaining the refugee crisis as a leverage against Israel rather than permanently solving it. Fast forward today, Hamas fighting Israel. The vast majority of Gazan residents have been displaced, and they have a refugee crisis even more immediate and intense than past conflicts. But despite that scale and desperation, Arab states have again said no. Egypt's president and Jordan's king immediately slammed their doors shut. Both leaders openly declared that not a single refugee from Gaza would permanently cross their borders. Egypt even doubled down by heavily reinforcing security at the Rafah border crossing, making it crystal clear Gazans weren't welcome. King Abdullah summed it up this way.
No refugees in Jordan, no refugees in Egypt. This is a situation of humanitarian dimension that has to be dealt inside of Gaza and the West Bank, and not to try and push the Palestinian challenge and their future onto other people's shoulders.
That's the easiest and safest answer for every government in the Mideast. They clearly understand the danger and instability that a large number of Gazan refugees could bring. They even reject bringing in smaller numbers who might bring the war against Israel with them. Egypt, in particular. It worries about extremists slipping into the Sinai and that Hamas or another radical group would set up shop there, where other insurgencies are already going on. Egypt knows that more armed factions isn't going to help their internal issues. And it also wouldn't help if Katyusha rockets and suicide bombers weren't coming from Gaza, but from Egypt itself. They're currently at peace with Israel, and they're not looking for any more problems there. So the Arab states, they acknowledge the security issues and then emphasize that they're protecting Palestinian claims by keeping refugees in place, no matter how harsh that sounds. It's easier to condemn Israel's actions loudly than to practically support Palestinian refugees. Political rhetoric, well, that doesn't cost anything. But housing millions of displaced Palestinians, that costs dearly. Security risks, social cohesion, you name it. Palestinians themselves are conflicted too. I mean, for many, leaving Gaza feels like permanently surrendering their homeland, exactly what Israel would want. And ironically, both Palestinians and Arab states find themselves resisting relocation for different reasons, obviously. That effectively traps Gazans in horrific conditions, caught between Israeli airstrikes and a sealed Arab border. But it leaves us with a fundamental moral and practical dilemma that's still unresolved. Is forcibly keeping Palestinians trapped inside Gaza a principled stand against Israel's pressure, or is it inhumane? So like a lot of things, it's too simple to accuse the Arab states of outright cynicism, using Palestinian suffering as a political weapon against Israel without genuinely wanting to help them. But on the other hand, there's elements of truth in that as well. Like I said in the introduction, it's complicated. Hey, here's another complicated question. Why do Arab armies almost always lose to the West? They can do pretty well with insurgencies and guerrilla warfare, but the last time an Arab army won a decisive war against the West was the Battle of Hattin, when Saladin defeated the Christian Crusaders and conquered Jerusalem. That was in 1187 AD. So what's going on? Hey, I hope you got a little bit smarter watching this, and if you did, come back again.
Picture this. You're a software engineer in London. 3 years ago, you were competing for jobs with companies throwing six-figure signing bonuses around like confetti. Today, you're one of 90,000 tech workers laid off globally this year alone. But here's the twist. While your friends are updating their LinkedIn status to open to work, the UK is simultaneously facing its most severe tech skills shortage in history. How is that possible that in a market flooded with experienced talent, companies still can't find the right people they need? The answer reveals a fundamental paradox at the heart of Britain's tech revolution. It's reshaping everything from Silicon Roundabout to the Highlands of Scotland. This is episode 6 of my video series Where to Run, where I discuss the best cities for mid to senior tech professionals to resettle after the pandemic and the layoffs of the past 2 years. This video series is for tech professionals already living and working in the US, Canada, the UK, or the European Union. If you're based outside these regions or in an outsourcing heavy market, the data in this video will not apply to your situation. I do not cover immigration, international job hunting, or topics like how to break into tech without a college degree. If that's what you're here for, this probably isn't the right channel. And that's okay. But if you are operating within these markets, keep watching. There's a lot ahead for various seniority levels and career tracks in tech. Before we start, please give us a thumbs up. We're working very hard to deliver the most accurate and honest information about the tech market in 2025. And on today's episode, we've got the United Kingdom. Over the past 3 years, the UK sector has experienced a dramatic wave of layoffs. Following a pandemic hiring boom, tech companies shifted to aggressive cost-cutting due to falling profits, which resulted in widespread job losses. The trend persisted into 2025, with over 90,000 layoffs recorded globally by May, and projections suggesting the year could end with even more layoffs, around 235,000. In the UK, these layoffs have been concentrated in large tech firms and pandemic-era hires, but the impact has rippled throughout the sector, leading to a sharp 50% decline in tech job ads since pre-pandemic levels, and the first drop in software developer employment since 2006. However, while on one hand, layoffs have created uncertainty and disrupted career stability, they have also prompted a shift in focus from rapid expansion to profitability and efficiency, which, yes, are the two fancy words for smaller and leaner teams for businesses. The turbulence has led to a more competitive job market, with smaller firms and startups seizing the opportunity to attract experienced talent, but it has also exposed deeper structural issues in the UK's tech talent pipeline. The wave of tech layoffs in the UK shows no signs of slowing in 2025, and this is still the turbulence we're going through after COVID, which is now combined with geopolitical tensions. Big names like Meta have cut jobs as part of their restructuring efforts. Kaspersky has also closed their UK office entirely, blaming it on the geopolitical pressures. The UK and London in particular is by far the largest tech hub in Europe, and here are some examples of what it's produced. The ARM chip, originally developed by Cambridge-based Acorn Computers in the 80s. Its ultra-efficient, low-power architecture became the backbone of the mobile revolution, powering over 95% of smartphones by 2010, including nearly every iPhone and Samsung device, and it continues to drive the Internet of Things today. Then there is the fintech revolution, where UK-born companies like Monzo, Starling Bank, Revolut, and Wise have reimagined what banking could look like. Mobile first, user-centric, and radically more transparent than traditional finance. As someone living in Canada, I can confirm, it's hard to overstate how far ahead the UK is in this space. Another standout is Darktrace, a Cambridge-founded cybersecurity company that pioneered the use of AI and machine learning for real-time threat detection. It's now valued at over £2 billion, and it's a global leader in autonomous cyber defense. And finally, while YouTube is an American product, key breakthroughs in its mobile video infrastructure, from capture to upload to playback, were developed by UK-based product and engineering folks. These innovations laid the groundwork for mobile video consumption as we know it today, fundamentally changing how billions of people create and interact with the content on the go. Let's talk about the scale and impact of tech layoffs in the UK. The tech industry globally has undergone unprecedented workforce reductions, with UK emerging as the significant epicenter of these changes. The layoff wave that began in 2022 has continued through 2025, reshaping the employment landscape in fundamental ways. The global tech sector experienced massive layoffs, totaling approximately 263,000 in 2023, representing a 59% increase from 2022. In 2024, with 133,000 employees across 410 companies losing their jobs by mid-year. In 2025, layoffs continued, with more than 22,000 workers laid off industry-wide by May. While the United States is an absolute leader with almost 116,000 tech jobs cut, the UK has emerged as Europe's largest center for tech workforce reductions. A startling 97% of UK tech businesses reported making redundancies in the 12 months leading to late 2024, which signals a widespread industry restructuring rather than isolated corporate decisions. Now, on to the major UK reductions and company responses. Go Cardless reduced its staff by 20% in early 2025, bringing the staff size down from 764 to approximately 600 since 2023. Fintech unicorn Zeps cut about 20% of its global workforce, affecting around 200 employees. OnFido's average headcount dropped by 19% to 224 employees as part of an operational expense review. Tech giants with significant UK operations, including Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft, have all conducted substantial workforce reductions as part of the global restructuring efforts. Despite the challenging employment landscape, the UK sector has demonstrated remarkable resilience in attracting investment, maintaining its position as Europe's leading tech hub. UK ranked as the second highest funded tech ecosystem globally in Q1 2025, raising an impressive $4.9 billion, which is a 44% increase compared to Q4 2024 and 26% higher than Q1 2024. This performance placed the UK ahead of both Germany and France combined, with UK startups raising similar funding to the total of Germany, France, and Spain in the same period. The United Kingdom has maintained its position as Europe's leading destination for foreign direct investment in technology. Health and life sciences startups emerged as the dominant investment category in early 2025, raising $1.8 billion in Q1, more than double the investment in any other sector. Nearly half of all VC investment in health and life sciences went to AI-powered startups, highlighting the growing convergence of healthcare and artificial intelligence. UK tech firms overwhelmingly plan to invest in AI and generative AI technologies, with 71% prioritizing this area in 2025 investment plans. Onto the structural changes in the UK tech ecosystem in the post-pandemic era. There is a significant transition from the growth at all costs mentality that characterized the pandemic boom years to a renewed emphasis on profitability and sustainable business models. And the most perplexing trend is what might be called the skills mismatch paradox. Despite 97% of tech businesses implementing layoffs, 75% report difficulty recruiting staff with appropriate skills. And lastly, onto the not so obvious trends reshaping the UK tech market. The Brexit talent effect. The combination of Brexit and tech layoffs has created a unique dynamic in the UK labor market. Unlike the overall job market, which has returned to the pre-pandemic levels, tech hiring remains down to approximately 50% compared to pre-pandemic figures. This suggests that Brexit may be influencing tech companies to invest and hire in EU countries where they can attract talent from across the bloc without complex visa processes. Despite Brexit concerns and the layoff wave, London has maintained its position as the world's 4th-ranked city for tech VC investment, behind only San Francisco, Beijing, and New York, and remains Europe's #1 tech hub. UK tech firms adopted employee monitoring tools at unprecedented rates, with 81% using tracking technologies to combat quiet vacationing and productivity concerns. However, this approach created a trust deficit. While 61% of companies reported improved morale from monitoring, 65% simultaneously expressed concerns about long-term cultural impacts. This sector now faces a delicate balance between operational oversight and preserving the autonomy that initially made hybrid models attractive. Post-pandemic hiring sprees masked a growing skills underutilization problem. By 2025, 74% of UK tech employees reported lacking opportunities to apply their core competencies, leading to a 19% quiet quitting rate. While 89% of UK tech leaders invested in AI systems by 2025, only 31% had retrained existing staff to work with these tools. This created a shadow skills gap, where employees watched their experience become obsolete while companies recruited externally for AI capabilities. This resulting disengagement contributed to a 114% increase in AI-related turnover between 2024 and 2025. Quality of talent. The UK's tech talent landscape is marked by both exceptional quality and acute scarcity. The country invests and promotes high-demand areas such as artificial intelligence. They're very big on cybersecurity and cloud computing. But this very success has fueled explosive demand for specialized talent, outpacing the supply of skilled professionals. Even with the UK's appeal to international tech workers, the most significant challenge is the chronic and growing tech skill shortage, which is worsened by the rapid acceleration in demand for specialized skills, particularly in fields that the UK is investing so much money into. If what I just said sounds contradicting to you, because on one hand, the company is investing a lot of money in these areas, they're stimulating startups, they're stimulating R&D, so it may seem like, well, if so many people got laid off, what's your problem? You've got a massive pool of available workforce, why not give them jobs? Well, it's not that simple. We're in the midst of an AI-first transformation that is arguably the most significant technological revolution of our time. Unlike the adoption of Web 2.0 and the internet, which unfolded gradually over decades, AI is being integrated at an unprecedented pace and scale. According to McKinsey's 2024 Global AI Survey, over 70% of organizations worldwide have adopted some form of AI, and the Gen AI market alone is projected to exceed $1.3 trillion by 2032. The speed and breadth of AI's impact far surpass previous digital revolutions, fundamentally reshaping industries, economies, and the future of work in real time. And on top of that, there is another paradox. Despite widespread adoption, 69% of organizations had yet to see measurable returns from their AI projects. The disconnect between the enthusiasm and outcomes is stark, and the gap lies in execution rather than ambition. I urge you to read a little bit about OpenAI's 2024 profitability analysis. Here's the report that was widely discussed in various data science communities last year, published by the company called Future Research in June 2024, claiming that only 15% of OpenAI's revenue came from API usage. Now, I gotta say that when this report was produced, it was an estimate, an unofficial estimate, and the data sources used for this report have been questioned by many. Other resources, such as industry newsletters and financial breakdowns, estimated the API share to be between 15 and 27%. Later, in September 2024, 2024, the information reported a leak from OpenAI, and it suggested that the API revenue estimate published by the Future Research 3 months prior was fairly accurate. Now, of course, these data points are unofficial and the OpenAI has not disclosed the revenue. Nevertheless, if you choose to believe these findings, and 15 to 20% of OpenAI's revenue is attributed to APIs, there's your proof that even though there is a lot of hype and enthusiasm, we're still far from mass adoption and complete integration of artificial intelligence into businesses. Domestic training and education efforts are underway, but have not yet produced enough homegrown talent to meet immediate needs. As a result, despite being a global magnet for tech talent, the UK still faces intense competition for a limited pool of qualified professionals, both from within the country and internationally, leading to many roles remaining unfilled. As I was doing the research for this video, I came across some very interesting data about the British education system, which I personally didn't know about before. There are a few reasons why the UK is experiencing a skills gap. Number 1, low uptake in schools. STEM subject participation remains a challenge. Only a small proportion of students in England pursue STEM subjects beyond age 16. Many schools, over half in some regions, do not offer computer science courses, limiting early exposure to technical fields. Regional and socioeconomic disparities persist, with disadvantaged areas seeing fewer students achieve high-level STEM qualifications. The government continues to fund adult education and tailored programs for learners aged 19 and over. There are a variety of paid programs and free training opportunities in IT, data, and technology. However, completion rates and alignment with industry is still below what the government is expecting. The government has invested significantly in STEM teaching and inclusion initiatives, such as the programs to support girls in mathematics. Women currently comprise only 15.7% as of March 2025 of UK engineers, which is down from 16.5% in 2023. Nevertheless, despite increased government investment and new industry partnerships, England's domestic STEM and technical education pipeline is not yet meeting demand. Low school uptake, regional and socioeconomic disparities, and persistent diversity issues continue to limit the supply of homegrown technical talent, leaving the UK reliant on both imported expertise and ongoing educational reform to bridge the gap. The vibe. The UK fintech sector has generated billions in revenue, and it's home to nearly a quarter of Europe's fintech unicorns, and employs more people than the tech sector in Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia combined. The UK, and London in particular, has the largest tech ecosystem in Europe, home to global companies and vibrant startup scene. It is a powerhouse in fintech and cybersecurity, offering some of the highest tech salaries on the continent. The city also provides fantastic networking opportunities, frequent industry events, and significant career mobility. However, the benefits come at a price. London has the highest cost of living and housing in the UK and one of the highest in Europe. The job market is intensely competitive, the pace is fast, and long commutes are common. Manchester, the UK's second largest tech hub, boasts a fast-growing digital economy. While salaries here are lower than in London, the cost of living is definitely more affordable. The city supports a strong startup and e-commerce scene. Nevertheless, despite the growth, Manchester doesn't host nearly as many global headquarters as London. Cambridge. Cambridge is internationally renowned for its strengths in research, biotech, and deep tech. It's home to major players like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and a range of top-tier startups. It has very strong academic and startup culture, and it is ideal for roles focused on R&D. Nevertheless, the housing costs are high relative to the city size. There is one more trend when it comes to the vibe. There is a noticeable trend of UK tech professionals exploring opportunities abroad, specifically within the UAE and Saudi Arabia. The UAE's tech sector is promising growth in areas such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and data analytics, with significant government investments in initiatives such as the UAE AI Strategy 2031 and Smart Dubai 2030. However, I'd like to warn everybody that not everything that glitters is gold. Check out my video about the post-pandemic and post-layoff tech scene in the Middle East. The UAE's ambition to become an AI-powered economy by 2030, combined with aggressive recruitment and investment, is drawing attention from the UK talent that is seeking challenges and higher compensation without brutal taxation. Cost of living. When it comes to cost of living, the differences across UK tech cities are pretty stark. While some places offer more balance and affordability, others trade higher pay for higher expenses. Take a moment to compare housing, lifestyle costs, and what your salary actually gets you in each city. Because sometimes the best job offer on paper does not go nearly as far once you factor in rent and everything else. Once again, this data is based on expenses of a mid to senior tech worker, such as a data scientist, product manager, or a software developer. I do not take into account things like family expenses because those can vary wildly. Conclusion. So where does this leave us? The UK tech scene in 2025 is essentially two contradictory stories happening simultaneously. On one hand, you have a matured ecosystem that's produced some of the world's most innovative companies, from the ARM processors in your phone to the fintech apps revolutionizing how we bank. On the other hand, you have a system struggling to keep pace with its own success. The layoffs aren't just about economic cycles. They're symptoms of a deeper transformation. We're witnessing the growing pains of an industry caught between the old world of move fast and break things and the new reality of show me the ROI. Meanwhile, the skills gap isn't just about the numbers. It's about the fundamental mismatch between what schools are teaching, the existing skill set of the tech force, and what the AI-first economy actually needs. And that's a wrap for the UK. Next up is Switzerland. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to stay tuned. As always, I hope this was helpful. Till next
She's fared well, considering she's been 8 months cold. She's banked with coal, the stokers are giving her kisses with the oil can. I can build her up in a day, once received good news from a lead party.
My crown's on Levescond. West is surely the first place ice will open.
Well, you lose. Graham crosses to land and covers twice the distance. I'm the captain on that one, sir.
Then you're both on. I had an aunt in Brighton who used to go and see her on holidays from London Bridge Station. I've almost certainly been pulled back and forth by that very engine. Look at her now. A footnote to lead paragraph.
I might poach that from my journal this evening.
It would be an honor, sir. And as we're in a wagering spirit, we put odds on Francis favouring us with his presence this morning.
Well, I hope he does. Perhaps it'll give him a lift, seeing the party's off.
Here comes the lending library. Just in time. Will this be another Jonathan Swift, or are you sending me back to Herodotus?
Sadly, there's no more Herodotus. No, this is a comedy. I thought you could do with a bit of a laugh on your 50 miles.
Scour the ice with Providence as your sure-footed guide, and return safely with news that our long winter sojourn will soon lie behind us, and we can finally raise our sails again and force this passage. Graham, I appreciate you taking the cylinders.
It'll be an honor, sir. To lay our first footprints upon King William Land, deliver your word.
Be sure to come back with a story.
Joyfully, sir.
I only wish I could join in the outing.
Francis? Sir? Is there anything you'd like to say?
Travel well.
Right. Good luck, man. Company! 3 cheers! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
Dr. MacDonald, kind enough to lend me his journals from his time on Cumberland Sound. It was they who brought back the Eskimo. Back to Aberdeen. Imagine. I don't recall his name, but he was of the Inuk tribe. Lieutenant Gore, do you recall that Inuk man's name?
I do not, Mr. Goodster.
It was long and terribly Eskimo. Please let me take my part, Lieutenant. You said to watch for 3 days, and I've done it. Now let me relieve someone who's earned it.
Whoa! Whoa! Cardinal, let him spell you. There's nothing more natural than pulling weight, Dr. Goodser. Watch Morphin here in front, and me with the corner of your eye. Match our strides. You'll take to it. I know you will. Heave!
Sorry. Sir John, I would have come to you.
No, not at all. Throw did me good. Shall we sit? I've come to repair our bonds, Francis. I'd like us to be friends again.
You never lost my friendship.
Well, that may be true, but I've certainly lost your company. And I'm not the only one to notice you've succeeded in avoiding Erebus most of the winter.
I'm a captain. I'm peevish of my own ship. I leave it and hear disaster knocking at its doors before I'm 10 steps away.
Would it help if I said that I made a mistake?
You misunderstand me, Sir John. I only meant to describe why I brood, not that I judge.
But summer is coming, Francis. I mean, surely you can slip your brooding there.
Summer's here in name only, Sir John. Temperatures barely come up to 0. The sundogs remain. These are the signs here.
Yes, signs of a cold May.
Signs that nature does not give a damn about our plans.
Is nature's author nowhere in your tally? What a disappointment I must be to you.
Simply that we're two men on two very different ships.
And here I'm come to make peace on yours, will you not on mine?
I will always come to you. I serve at your command.
Very well. Oh, you see to be ease, Francis. There's a draft.
Must be.
Look what it does to the ice.
An unstoppable force beats an immovable mass.
It's beautiful.
We continue on foot.
deserve a prize for your orienteering, Mr. DeVoe. I can see the cairn. That'll be half a mile.
Looks as if the Eskies have left it alone.
17 years. Maybe it spooks them.
It's hard to imagine anyone coming here. Ever.
This place make you uneasy, Doctor?
You call me doctor, but technically I'm just a surgeon. Anatomist, in fact.
There's a doctor in my book. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. I pray it's English tea merchants coming from Canton who look upon that message next.
See something good, sir? No, sir.
Sergeant Bright, you'll accompany me to the second cairn. We can walk the ice, scout for open water. Mr. DeVoe, return with the boys to the sledge and make camp. Get some rest if we've not returned.
Godspeed, sir. Lieutenant Gore!
Is someone there? Answer me.
Lieutenant Irving.
Mr. Gibson. What are you doing down here?
I'd come down for coal earlier this morning and heard one of the ship's cats crying back here somewhere.
Is someone with you there?
Yes, Mr. Hickey was kind enough to accompany me. I'm trying to find it. He's been looking all over behind here.
The captain.
Got all caught up on one of the old...
His seat of ease has a draft. Have Mr. Hickey see to it.
Oh, I'm here, Lieutenant. He's running to inform.
No, I don't think he will.
Cornelius will be lashed.
If Lieutenant Irving goes to inform command, then he's going to have to tell them what it is he saw. Which means he's going to have to open his imagination to what he didn't. I've seen him at Sir John's Sunday service. I've watched him pray. That's a man afraid of chaos. He's not going to invite more if he can help it.
Can't be sure of it.
No. they're being lashed.
Looking forward to getting the stove going. Wait on. Look.
What could have done that?
There must be a bear. A bear did that. We'll be able to tell by the tracks. There may have been more than one. Should we all go?
I just don't understand why he resists us, James.
He's a disappointed man. You should not have to bear his grievances.
Yeah, well, perhaps it is I who's unable to truly bring him into the bosom of my confidence. I want to. I've always planned to, but then when I'm with him, I don't know why I falter.
You have done everything for the man.
Have I?
Sir, he was no one's first choice for this expedition.
Nor was I.
How any man achieves his post on an expedition is less important than how he spends it. And, well, that he measures up. I will not have Francis's melancholy touch you. I'll not have it, do you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, sirs.
What is it, Mr. Bridgens?
The first lead party's just returned, sir.
What news, Lieutenant? Stay City.
We travelled as far as 11 miles east, sir. We discern no signs of the ice yield.
And the men, how did they fare?
Some of them are with Dr. Stanley now. We also had an issue with our provisions.
What issue?
Some were rotted. Inedibly so.
Ask Mr. Wall to prepare an early supper for the lieutenant and his men. Gather your strength before returning to your ship.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir.
Oh, not at all. We suspected East was not our brightest star to follow. Nevertheless, you and the men have done a great service.
Well done.
The Western team must be nearly home now. Good thing. Looks like a sour sky. Funny to think of this place as home, isn't it? Well, here she comes now. I thought Mohawks had carted you off.
Oh, no. Much worse.
He proposed. Again.
You declined, of course.
Not firmly enough, in my opinion.
In gratitude to you both for my care, must I surrender my privacy?
Sophia, your safety in this world is what we would keep you from surrendering. This matter with Francis won't end until you are firm, my dear. He's an explorer, and you must know by now that explorers are made of hope. They breathe hope.
I can't very well ask him to stop breathing, Uncle.
No. But you really must repel his curiosities now. I know you won't find it as much fun as encouraging them, but you're not a child. He's suitable for a good many women. I've no doubt. But just under a different banner than ours.
been sleeping either. I've only sleep pretty simple as closing your eyes. I was thinking about Tad. The first of Parry's boat-hauling reindeer. Tad. What made you think of that, poor sod?
We brought those deer 1,000 miles north from Norway, only to slaughter them on the ice.
That was the ice that made me want to be a master. The way it kept moving us back. It was rough ice.
The deer couldn't haul on it. We knew that in a day. But we kept them anyway. Ferrying deer from ice floe to ice floe. By boat, thinking we could use them by and by. Rowing reindeer in our sleigh boats. Like proper little ladies. In ostrich carts.
They were so confused.
Is that us? No? Confused? Out of our depth?
I've seen worse than this, you and me. And I know you saw much worse south of Sir James. I've read other versions than yours. I know them to be reliable.
This is different.
Aye. You trusted Ross and you trusted Parry.
Either you're clairvoyant, or I'm not doing half the job I think I am, concealing my thoughts.
No, it's just that I know you.
What will it do to us, the ice? If no leads get found and we have to spend another winter here.
Without a thaw to clear last winter's ice, it'll start to back up and then pile up high. Like one whole country being squeezed into the borders of another.
It'll push the boats up.
I have seen boats force 20, 30 feet in a jam.
Can we survive that amount of pressure?
If it drives us up, yeah, we'll ride it. It could also drive us under.
Snap our beams and crush us at the waist.
Let's pray for the former then.
I'll put the third tent up. We'll all appreciate the extra room if we're in for foul weather. I was only just thinking that's what this camp needed. More ice.
Time to get inside, boys. We're just ahead of it. Are you repairing the boat? Get inside!
Sir. We found it like that.
Blast it. The bell's
was tracking us. We heard it a mile back up in the ice, and a mile before that. I fired in its direction to drive it off, but it must not be for in its life have smelled anything like an Englishman. What do we do?
Shoot it in the head, carve it up for supper.
And if it's not alone? Everyone, a rifle.
It's just up there.
He took it in the chest, sir.
That's a girl.
Who's she looking for? I'll get the lieutenant.
I'll call you next. Neptune, sir. He relieved himself before I could alert Mr. Jobson. There's no warning, I'm afraid.
And yet you take up the duty.
My apologies, sir. I know better to mind my own tasks.
Not at all. I meant it as a statement of gratitude, Mr. Hickey.
You're most welcome, Captain.
You're a Limerick man,
Thereabouts, sir.
but that's not what comes out of your mouth. If I hadn't read the ship's roster, I'd never have known you were Irish.
I've lived as many years in Liverpool and Manchester as there. I barely remember anything but England.
It must have made it easier for you.
Yeah. I learned early. Those who are quickest to tally your value often do it on your spots alone.
You should know the Discovery Service is not unlike the world in that regard. If not worse.
You've done extraordinarily well. Captain of a great ship. Gives the rest of us mixed hope.
You take a drink, Mr. Hickey?
I won't put the captain out.
What day of the week is it?
The Wednesday, sir.
Ourselves, then. second lead party returned last night. No leads west.
Forgive me for saying so, but I have my doubts we'll see leads this year.
Perhaps I would have done better to have played your game, Mr. Hickey, and culled the world. I applaud you. Come.
Yes, John.
I'm sorry, sir. The last lead party, sir. It's been sighted.
Stanley. Commander Fitzjames, I will not touch this man.
You needn't. This man's been in my care for 2 days.
Mr. Goodstuff?
The ball needs to be removed so the hole can be closed, otherwise it will keep collapsing his lung, which I suspect is leaning on the man's heart.
What is Sir John's wish here?
We may be able to spare him. May I have your leave to try? He had nothing to do with what happened to Lieutenant Borsa.
Kainoy Neto, Ilanang, Ilanang, Lukan, Ilanang, Ilanant.
This man's her father. Sir, can you tell her this will be painful for him, but I'll be as quick as I can be.
Tate, Ikeyo, Uma Yawu, Kishine, Adianya.
It's in too deep in the tissue.
Can't you cut it out?
Every breath he takes is making it worse. Who knows how badly we jostled him getting him to the ship.
Tate, Ikoyo Rung Nang Ita. Ayung na luang mat.
Anak ka mangindig. Ano kali ang ningan? Tayo na sinig ka ba kaya kang ginawa? Jumpak ka man kita.
What is she saying?
She's begging him not to ask this of her.
Ask what of her?
Atay, nanilay dat. Eka. Hilamino, huriya ka. Nananihin ko may. Mani ang gitso! Mani ang gitso! Hilamino, huriya ka. Nananihin ko may.
Stretcher, bring a stretcher.
Mani ang gitso!
She says he must die on the ice, not here.
Ika yung na.
Commander Fitzjames, you'll escort this woman off Erebus. Please see to it that the sick bay is restored, Dr. Stanley.
Certainly, sir. Sir, with your permission, I'd like to take the woman aboard Terra.
You're staying here, Francis, until we've heard from every one of Graham's team about what happened out there. Mr. Goodser, come with us, please.
We found only one set of prints. Large. 20 inches across.
How long did you search for Lieutenant Gore before you decided to leave him?
We searched for a half-mile in each direction, sir.
Then how can you be certain he was killed?
The amount of blood, sir, on the ice? No man could have survived losing so much.
You say this with complete authority on the subject?
I do, sir. Whether it was our grief or fatigue, I cannot say, but some of us, Hartnell and Morphin specifically, became convinced that the bear continued to track us. Here. Back to the ships.
Based on what evidence? Mr. Goodsir.
We could not be more distressed by what happened, sirs. Lieutenant Gore was one of the very best men.
Leads, Doctor. Did you find any leads?
The ice showed no sign of the thaw, captains. On the contrary, the rack of ice built up around the shore of King William Land was thicker than Lieutenant Gore expected.
Are you now an expert on the ice too, Mr. Goodsir?
Thank you. That will be all.
There's one more thing, Captain.
Yes?
The Eskimo man?
What about him?
He had signs of surgical procedure in his past.
What sort of procedure?
He had no tongue. It was removed some time ago, I believe, with some sharp edge.
These people are not our concern. We have one of our own men to mourn. You may go.
Sir.
What have you learned?
She's in good condition, and she has been eating. Fairly well, in fact.
That could mean her people have found game in the area. Has she conversed with you?
No.
Atate Ayo Nangman. Igluling me Aglukan, Mick. Aglukan. Kinalvit. Naugli Inokartiti. Ilingni Ikayo Roma Yuawut.
Ikayo Roma Kofi. Umiyat Arlagotikuk.
You looked at utakre auniaptome. She said that if we don't leave now, we're going to Hukahoi.
Disappear.
It's one of the most controversial reality shows of all time.
I think maybe the biggest thing that I don't like about this show is that it seems to manipulate the contestants.
It's upsetting in a lot of ways. What this producer and all the people who worked for him did to this poor guy.
I don't know what your values are, but certainly this show does not fit in any set of values.
Most reality shows are about singing, cooking, or dancing, but others were created just to shock or disgust viewers. Some of these shows were so bad, viewers sued the network for airing them. Today, we're diving into the worst. We'll look at TV's most disturbing reality shows, starting from the least to the most shocking. So my goal this year is to give you guys double the amount of videos without sacrificing quality. And in order for me to do that, we gotta keep Visual Venture growing. So 75% of you guys aren't subscribed, and it would mean the world to me if you did. And I promise to give you more fire content. I'm Visual Venture. You are awesome. MILF Manor. Google MILF Manor and you'll see headlines like MILF Manor is the worst thing I watched this year. MILF Manor is a show that should not exist and everyone involved is going straight to hell. And people might have not been overreacting. Their biggest problem was the show's insane concept. MILF Manor was a dating show that premiered in January 2023. It followed 8 women in their 40s and 50s who wanted to date younger men. So the producers handpicked a group of guys who seemed like perfect matches.
Please head to the house where you will meet the new men in your life. Let's go!
But as soon as the guys walked out, the show took a disgusting turn.
Woo!
That's my mom right there.
These weren't just random young men. They were the contestants' own sons. They were the sons of the older women. That meant that every son had to watch his mother flirt, kiss, and date right in front of him. And the moms had to watch their sons do the same.
I knew my son Gabriel was going to be in Mexico with me. I thought he was going to be on a separate dating retreat, but he's in my dating pool.
But that was just the beginning. Instead of giving everyone separate rooms, the producer forced each mother and son to share a bedroom. So if a mom wanted alone time with one of the other guys, she had to kick her son out. Viewers were horrified, calling the show demented and weird. However, for the mothers and sons on the show, the experience was worse. By the second episode, one of the sons was left legitimately traumatized after finding out what his mother did. The producers needed to keep the show exciting, so in every episode, contestants were forced into awkward challenges. In episode 2, they had to guess each other's inappropriate secrets. That meant that sons had to sit there and listen to their mom's bedroom experiences and vice versa. Obviously, it did not end well. During the challenge, one of the moms confessed to doing something with her son's best friend.
Okay, my secret is I with your best friend.
The son was speechless. He later told the show producers that he felt traumatized by the savage news.
This is something I never saw coming. I did not expect this at all, 0%.
That scene went viral and got everyone talking. Someone tweeted the pain in his face when his mom reveals her secret. MILF Manor is going to ruin these families. But instead of hurting the show, the negative publicity helped it grow. Soon, MILF Manor was one of the most popular shows of 2023. It was a train wreck, impossible to watch, yet impossible to look away from. This tweet said it best: MILF Manor being the single most demented, sick, and twisted television show put in television in the past 20 years. OMG, I will be seated for every episode. The first season, which aired on TLC, accumulated more than 45 million views. But people weren't watching because they liked MILF Manor. They watched just to complain.
It seems to be unanimously the most twisted and show I've ever seen.
But the backlash didn't stop the producers from releasing MILF Manor Season 2 in 2024. This time, the single women were pursued by younger men and their fathers. Still weird, but in a different way. MILF Manor has a 14% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And although it hasn't been confirmed, there's a chance MILF Manor Season 3 is already in the works. The show was a train wreck, but the worst part, these women had no control over their privacy. And that's not just a reality TV problem, it is an internet problem. Data brokers sell our personal information without us even knowing. You could go to any data broker website right now and buy anyone's data for a few bucks. I don't know why, but it is completely legal. I've literally been a victim of this. My personal information was floating around on the internet, and when people found it, it turned into a terrible situation. So I tried removing my data from every site that sold it, but after long hours, I only deleted like 5% of my personal information online. That's where today's sponsor, Aura, comes in. They scan data broker websites to find find out where your information is being sold without spending hours. And watch, after a few weeks, you'll notice less spam. But most importantly, when you search yourself up, you'll stop seeing your private information online. Aura also monitors the dark web and alerts you if your data has been leaked. And if someone tries to open credit or bank accounts in your name, they let you know instantly. And in the very worst case scenario, they provide up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Aura even includes a VPN with over 100 virtual locations for even more privacy. You guys, I genuinely recommend going to my link aura.com/VV to try 14 days for free, because that'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. If I did this earlier, it would have saved me a ton of time and money. Everyone knew this next show would cause chaos because it involved kids, but the producers went ahead and made it anyway. Kid Nation. In 1954, someone wrote a book about kids trying to survive without adults. It was called Lord of the Flies. In the story, a bunch of kids decided to create their own society on an island. But before long, everything falls apart. Tempers flare, they turn on each other, and their society descends into chaos. So everyone was shocked when CBS announced a reality show about kids building their own society. They called it Kid Nation. And no surprise, it was a complete disaster.
Welcome to Kid Nation.
Kid Nation was filmed in an empty town in New Mexico. 40 of America's smartest children were dropped off and told to run the town for 40 days. There were no adults to help them, just a camera crew who stayed out of the way. The kids were between the ages of 8 to 15.
Imagine a world with no adults. Just 40 kids with a chance to build their own society.
Our work is cut out for us.
City kids, country kids, rich, poor, and everything in between.
At first, it felt like an adventure. The kids were in charge, making their own rules. But then, everything started to go wrong. The problem started on day 1. As soon as they arrived, the kids were given their first physical challenge: haul all of their food and supplies to the abandoned town in the middle of the desert heat. But that was just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm not gonna be with my parents. There's no adults, and I think I'm gonna die out here because there's nothing.
When it was bedtime, they were given paper-thin, dirty mattress pads to sleep on. Food wasn't any better. They were only given canned goods and dried beans and had to learn how to prepare their own meals.
Well, when we first started planning for dinner, I realized that a lot of us haven't done anything like this before.
Then there was the issue of medical care. With no parents around, they were left to treat their own injuries. Medics were on standby, but they only stepped in when things got really bad. With each passing day, Kid Nation got more chaotic. Kids ate with their hands because there were no clean dishes. Fights broke out, and someone was always complaining about something.
I don't see any food. No food. It looks like all our laundry and all our water is frozen in.
But instead of stopping the show, producers just recorded the chaos. And then the police arrived to shut it all down. A few weeks into filming, New Mexico officials received an anonymous complaint about the conditions at Kid Nation. When inspectors showed up to investigate, they were turned away several times. Eventually, the show's producer were able to get law enforcement to back off. So, the mayhem continued.
I think the town definitely really needs some law and order because the people are just doing whatever they want, whenever they want.
The kids formed their own government by electing a town council, but all it did was create new problems and fights.
I find that really funny that you say you were nice to everybody on day 1. You treat me like a... I'm not gonna treat you good.
The show lasted 6 weeks, but if things got too intense, any child could choose to go home. So 3 kids quit before the show officially ended. Kid Nation finally aired on CBS in September 2007. And it caused an uproar. Viewers weren't just shocked, they accused the show of breaking the law. Child safety advocates accused the show of violating child labor laws. But the network saw this coming and made sure they were protected. CBS defended Kid Nation, claiming the set was more like a summer camp rather than a place of employment. Before filming, they also had the kids' parents sign a 22-page waiver giving up all rights to sue. Still, viewers complained that this show was too reckless and that contestants could have been seriously hurt. The backlash was so intense that CBS never made a second season. This next show took the idea of beauty and pushed it way too far. The Swan. What happens when you mix plastic surgery and beauty pageants? You get this horrible show. The Swan was a reality show where women got plastic surgery to compete in a beauty pageant, and every step of the process was recorded for the world to see. But what aired on TV was so unsettling, it was called the most sadistic reality series of the decade. Each episode began with the show selecting women they called ugly ducklings.
I've got hair. I feel completely unbearably disgusted with myself.
For 3 months, these women went through an extreme makeover with a team that included a personal trainer, therapist, dentist, and cosmetic surgeons. But the biggest part of their transformation involved plastic surgery.
Women went under the knife for dramatic transformations, going from ugly ducklings, that's the phrase the show used, to beautiful swans.
Contestants got new noses, cheek implants, lip injections, and other jobs, all done at the same time. It wasn't fun. Contestants were pressured into surgeries they didn't want. One woman was scolded by one of the plastic surgeons for refusing a nose job. Another woman felt mounting pressure from the show to continue getting more work done to her body. But things didn't get any easier after the surgeries either. For 3 months, contestants were completely isolated from their friends and family, only allowed brief phone calls each week. But the strangest part was that they weren't allowed to literally see themselves. Every mirror they came across was covered. On top of that, they endured intense workouts, strict diets, and therapy sessions. If they didn't keep up, the coaches would tear into them. One contestant was harshly scolded just for ordering cream cheese. It was a complete emotional shock. At the end of the 3 months, their final transformation was revealed. It was like going to bed and waking up looking like a different person.
No way. Oh my God.
But the show wasn't over yet. Each season, 9 contestants were chosen to move on to the Swan Beauty Pageant. Those who didn't qualify for the pageant were simply sent home with no further support. That was pretty cruel considering they just went through life-changing surgeries.
And the people that they bring onto the show to undergo all these procedures do have sometimes profound psychological issues that they need help to work through. And this is not something that you can do in a 2.5-month program.
Some contestants later said they struggled with depression after the show ended, but the show didn't care. They focused on the women who made it to the Swan pageant, and for those women, well, things didn't get any better for them either. Instead of celebrating each contestant's journey, the show turned their transformations into a competition, adding more pressure to an already stressful experience.
And we've been, relying on each other, and then all of a sudden, they're going to pit us against each other, not by our choices.
The Swan pageant was a standard beauty contest with categories like evening gown, swimsuit, and lingerie. Whoever was considered the most transformed woman at the end was crowned the winner. The first season premiered in April 2004, and it was a hit, averaging 9.1 million viewers a week. Despite the high ratings, it also received a ton of negative comments.
The show stirred a major controversy, particularly over the ugly duckling crap.
Critics called it hurtful and repellent. Mental health experts said it promoted dangerous beauty standards.
But the whole setup and the people standing back there, it seems so contrived and fake that I just don't like it.
Even plastic surgeons spoke out, saying it was risky to put contestants through so many surgeries in such a short time. After 2 seasons of non-stop criticism, The Swan was canceled. But as time passed, its reputation only got worse. Entertainment Weekly ranked it the worst reality television show ever produced. This next show wasn't just deemed disturbing by the public. I think we can all agree that the premise itself was meant to be as shocking as possible. My Strange Addiction. Every episode of My Strange Addiction was either tragic, creepy, or shocking, sometimes all 3. The show traveled across the country searching for people with the strangest addictions imaginable. The producers didn't want common struggles like gambling or substance use. They wanted addictions that would shock viewers to the core. And for 6 seasons, My Strange Addiction delivered exactly that, showcasing the strangest addictions ever seen on TV. One of the most unforgettable episodes followed a woman named Cassie. She recently lost her husband, and in her grief, she became addicted to eating his ashes.
First, I lick my finger, and I don't just dip it in. I swirl around to kind of feel and get it caked on there good. and then I just ate it.
Then there was Nathaniel, who was in a romantic relationship with his car. He kissed the car, took it on dates, and even got intimate with it.
Love you, baby. It was love at first sight. His body and then his interior and everything just together just seemed to fit. And I just felt an instant connection.
Some addictions were more about appearances. One man spent thousands of dollars on surgery to look like a celebrity.
Some people buy fancy cars or fancy mansions, and what I do with my money is I get surgery to look more like Justin Bieber.
Then there was a woman who ate beds, literally.
My name is Jennifer, and I'm addicted to eating mattresses.
Some of these addictions weren't just strange, they were dangerous. A woman named Lori couldn't fall asleep without her blow dryer turned on next to her. Firefighters warned her it was a serious fire hazard, but she couldn't stop.
She, one night, turned on this blow dryer, and the sound of it, the warmth of it, just instantly put me to sleep. And from that night forward, I was hooked.
The show quickly became a hit. With each episode, the addictions got stranger and more shocking. But then, one addiction was so bizarre that viewers started to wonder if the entire show was fake. In season 3, episode 27, a woman appeared on the show with a not-so-safe craving.
My name is Shannon, I'm 20 years old, and I'm addicted to drinking gasoline.
This episode was so outrageous it made people start asking questions. A core user wrote, "Can someone actually drink gasoline daily without ending? I just can't believe she's walking and talking normally. This has to be fake, right?" That person wasn't alone. On Reddit, there was a whole conversation about if the show was fake. I mean, how could someone eat a mattress and not end up in the hospital? And that led to an even bigger question. If these addictions were real, was the show actually helping anyone, or just using their struggles for entertainment? Most shows about addiction try to help people recover. My Strange Addiction didn't. It just filmed their struggles and moved on. The show pretended to care. Toward the end of the show, a therapist is usually brought in to assess the addiction and advise on the best course of action for the individuals to take. But most of the time, the therapist's advice wasn't helpful. One critic said it best: "Afflictions are fascinating, but too much time is spent gawking at their odd behavior as opposed to treating it. Only in the final moments do therapists pay a visit, and they oversimplified things by suggesting exercise and journaling." After 6 seasons, My Strange Addiction ended in 2015. Till today, clips from the show still go viral, but no one can answer the biggest question: were the addictions on the show real, or was the entire show one big scam? This next show was built on a foundation of lies and deception. Scare Tactics. From 2003 to 2013, Scare Tactics aired 114 episodes, and in every single one, the goal was the same: to terrify people like never before.
Welcome to Scare Tactics, where the cameras are hidden and people's everyday fears are exposed.
It was a hidden camera show that lured people into terrifying situations. They thought they were being hunted by monsters, abducted by aliens, or haunted by ghosts. And it was their own friends and family that set them up. Each episode began with a setup.
Well, I wanted to set up Ryan tonight on Scare Tactics because he always thinks he is so big and bad, and I just wanted to prove to everyone once and for all, he's not as hardcore as he always thinks that he is.
The show went all out, using actors, costumes, and special effects to make everything feel real. The prank always started with something normal, like a job interview or a car ride. Then suddenly things took a terrifying turn.
No, I have nothing to do with it.
You want my formula? You want my formula?
And just when the victim was about to lose it, the actors dropped the iconic line, "You're on Scare Tactics."
Because you're on Scare Tactics.
Are you serious?
Your boyfriend Matt set you up.
One of the worst pranks involved a rat monster experiment. The person being set up was hired as an assistant in a mysterious lab. Everything seemed fine until one of the experiments escaped.
There's a little monster man running around in here. What was it?
Most viewers thought it was hilarious. Some felt the show was going too far with their scares. And then one day, Scare Tactics scared someone so much she sued the show. In March 2002, Scare Tactics picked their next target, Cara Blanc, a grade school teacher. With help from her friends, they lured Cara to an isolated location. Then out of nowhere, an actor in an alien costume jumped out. Cara panicked. The alien chased her everywhere. At the last second, the actors revealed it was all fake. Everyone else laughed laughed, but Kara wasn't amused. She was furious and she wanted payback. Kara sued the show, claiming that she had to be hospitalized for physical injuries as well as severe emotional distress. She also asked the court to stop her episode from ever airing. In the end, Scare Tactics paid Kara a low 7-figure sum and her episode was never shown. Since then, more people have complained about the show, raising points like, what if someone had a medical condition? What if they fought back and hurt the actors? But everyone was usually always fine in the end. Even the ones who cried usually laughed when they realized it was all fake. So far, there's been 5 seasons of Scare Tactics, and in October 2024, it was revived for a 6th season.
Laugh it up. You could be next.
I admit, I used to watch this next show back in the day, and I'm surprised it wasn't canceled. Fear Factor. Fear Factor made people face their worst fears for a chance to win $50,000 US. But these weren't ordinary fears, they were extreme.
You're gonna climb that 110-foot tower, you will walk to the edge of the platform, and you will leap from the edge, grab a hold of that cargo net. You'll be jumping twice your body length.
Even the host, Joe Rogan, thought something bad could have happened because the stunts were so risky. Luckily, no one got seriously hurt. Still, a lot of terrible things happened because of Fear Factor. Fear Factor premiered on NBC in June 2001, right when reality TV was starting to take off. NBC wanted a show so wild, so extreme that no one could ignore it. So they created Fear Factor. In each episode, 6 contestants faced 3 scary challenges. If the contestant was too afraid to complete a stunt, they were eliminated. If they failed a stunt, they were eliminated. Before the stunts even started, contestants had to sign a waiver. The waiver stated that no matter what happened, injury or worse, contestants couldn't sue the show. They signed and the madness began.
I'm Joe Rogan. This is Fear Factor. The stunts you're about to see were all designed and supervised by trained professionals. They are extremely dangerous and should not be attempted by anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Each episode started with a crazy physical challenge. Contestants had to do things like hang upside down over 100 feet in the air. The second challenge always involved something disgusting, and the final stunt was the toughest. It combined fear and physical endurance. Every challenge was intense, but what really made Fear Factor famous were the disgusting challenges. No one was prepared for how wild they were.
Extremely nervous because I know it's not gonna be fun. It's gonna be terrifying.
In one episode, contestants had to eat sheep eyes. The camera zoomed in, capturing every gag and chew, but they were just getting started.
Come on, harness my man up. Give him a helmet. Let's go. Let's do it. Put a helmet on him.
We had people fly cars across a train, a moving train. Okay, there's risk involved in that, right?
Contestants could back out of a challenge anytime. No one was forcing them, but most refused to quit. However, only one person could win the $50,000 prize. Because of these extreme challenges, Joe Rogan expected the series to be canceled after just a few episodes, but he was wrong. Fear Factor was a massive hit. The first 4 seasons were so popular that it became the first network reality show to be syndicated, which means that it aired on other television networks. The show also made Joe Rogan a household name. Then it finally happened. Fear Factor was sued for an episode that went too far. In January 2005, a 49-year-old man watched an episode where contestants drank blended rats. He was so disgusted that he felt dizzy and lightheaded. In his confusion, he ran into a doorway. He blamed Fear Factor for his injury and sued them for $2.5 million. He said he sued to send a message to NBC and other networks about their programming. However, his case didn't go far. A judge dismissed the lawsuit, calling it frivolous. By the 5th season, viewers were losing interest in Fear Factor. Ratings were dropping. More people criticized the challenges. By 2006, NBC had enough. Fear Factor was canceled after the 6th season. But the show refused to die. In 2011, NBC brought it back, but it was canceled again after 1 season. Then in 2017, Fear Factor returned on MTV, but it lasted only 2 seasons before getting canceled again. No reality show has punished contestants as much as this next show. Susunoo Denpa Shonen. Reality shows are supposed to be fun, but Susunoo Denpa Shonen was more like torture, and I am not exaggerating. It was literally described as this. The whole point was to push people to their breaking point. Every season, new contestants were thrown into extreme challenges to see how long they would last before breaking down. Meanwhile, millions of viewers watched from home entertained. The show ran from 1998 to 2002, and every season was brutal, but season 1 was the worst. The first season aired in January 1998. It was called Denpa Shonen: A Life in Prizes. The contestant was a 22-year-old man nicknamed Nasubi. The producers wanted someone desperate for fame, someone willing to take on a mysterious challenge without asking too many questions. Nasubi was perfect. He was an unknown comedian trying to make it big. When producers offered him the opportunity to be on TV, he figured it was his big break. Since it was a new show, the producers explained the rules to Nasubi. He would be locked in a tiny apartment without furniture or appliances. He would have no food, no clothing, and no contact with the outside world. His only way to survive would be by entering magazine sweepstakes and winning prizes. He would basically enter contests where he had a chance to win prizes, but there's a catch. The prizes are completely random. You could enter a sweepstake hoping to win a car, but instead you might win a box of ramen noodles. You never know what you're going to get. That was Nasubi's reality. If he won food, he could eat. If he didn't, he went hungry. If he won clothes, he could wear them. Producers told Nasubi he would be released once he won 1 million yen worth of prizes. That was equivalent to around $8,000 at the time. They also promised the footage wouldn't be streamed live. Instead, they would record everything, edit it down, and turn it into a television special. But that was a lie. It was like a real-life Truman Show. It was broadcasted live.
Unbeknownst to him, the show was broadcast weekly across Japan to more than 15 million viewers.
Nasubi thought he was signing up for a challenge. Instead, he became the subject of a twisted social experiment. Nasubi expected to win 1 million yen in prizes in a couple of days. Then he would be released. But days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months, and he wasn't winning much. Viewers watched as Nasubi filled countless sweepstake entry forms, celebrating with a dance each time he won a prize. Unfortunately, most of his prizes were bizarre or useless in his situation, like a tent too large to unfold in his room or a bicycle without any space to ride. He barely won food. He sometimes went days without eating, and when Nasubi finally won a piece of meat, he was overjoyed. He also had no human interaction, so he talked to himself and the camera. After a couple of months, it seemed Nasubi was slowly losing his mind. All this time, he had no idea that 15 million viewers around Japan were watching his every move. Nasubi knew the door was open and that he could leave if he wanted to, but he kept going, determined to reach his goal.
At first, I was excited, and I was thinking about all kinds of things, like how to do something funny in this space. After about a week, I began to worry about whether I could really continue this on my own.
It took Nasubi 15 months to win enough prizes to be set free. 15 months of isolation and hardship. Nasubi's story is the most infamous, but other contestants went through extreme challenges too. In one season, 2 men had to hitchhike all the way from South Africa to Norway. In another, contestants were stranded on a desert island and told to build a raft to escape. These weren't just challenges, they were life or death situations disguised as entertainment. Despite the cruelty, Susunu Denpa Shonen was a hit in Japan. Viewers loved watching it. But over time, people started to condemn the show. It felt morally wrong to push people to their limits just for entertainment.
It's upsetting in a lot of ways. What this producer and all the people who worked for him did to this poor guy.
The show finally ended in 2002, but it's considered the ultimate example of how far a reality show will go for attention. Some reality shows take things way too far, and I believe that entertainment should never come at the expense of someone's well-being, because when the cameras turn off, the damage stays. Visual Venture. If you guys like this video,